Are teenagers too dependent? Has the school system fostered this dependency? What does it mean for the future going forward for our teenagers and for our society? All that and so much more on this episode of Teen Life Coaching Show. Don't go away.
When you're feeling all alone, only you to hold your own. No one there to help you, only there to hold you down. So stop, don't beat up yourself, 'cause it's everyone else. So don't look down, look up around, 'cause you are better. I can see when the fire gets started, it takes a lot of tears to wash away. When they come and make you feel downhearted, don't hide away. And now it's feeling like the longest day. It's getting harder to find the will to stay. You gotta find the strength inside of you, so don't hide away. I can see when the fire gets started, it takes a lot of tears to wash away.
Okay, folks, and a warm welcome to you wherever you're watching and whenever you're watching this. Welcome to Teen Life Coaching Show. I'm your host, John Morris, joined, of course, once more by my friend, longtime business partner, Loree Bischoff, and back in the hot seat once again is the awesome Josh Rosenbaum, who is going to be taking a little bit of the lead on this because Josh has not only been a teacher and a basketball coach for 30 years, but he's got a lot of deep insight as well into our specific topic, all about teens and dependency and codependency, and if the school is fostering this and so much more. So let's bring them on, shall we? There we go. Welcome, panel. How are we doing today? Good to see you all.
It's a great day. It's the first day of summer vacation, so I'm excited to recharge my batteries and set a goal on what I want to do for the next school year. It's an exciting time.
Sounds good. Loree, how are you doing? Oh, we've lost Loree on microphone. We were having all sorts of sound problems before, folks, and now we've lost Loree on microphone. I don't know what's happened.
Now? How
There
about
we go.
now?
She's back. She's back.
I don't know what's going
Technology's
on.
not looking simple.
Some technical difficulties today, but we're good. And I'm very curious about what Josh is going to bring up today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Josh, the floor is yours. If you've got things burning that you want to start us off with, absolutely, the floor is yours, my friend. The mic is yours. Take it away.
Well, as we spoke earlier this week in planning for the show, the key word was dependence. And I wanted to really focus on what students depend on, not only for their knowledge, but for their fulfillment. For example, are they dependent on their ability, or are they dependent on just being able to hit a couple keystrokes and being able to get the information at the snap of a finger? So I wanted to kind of know how you guys felt about maybe the assignments not being as rigorous, maybe not the work being as thought-provoking, and that we're creating students and young adults and future leaders of our country that are not dependent on their skills, but they're dependent on technology, software, or even somebody else for their decision making.
That's really interesting because I imagine, being that you've been in the school system for nearly 3 decades, you've seen firsthand this major shift from literally books, paper, pen, and students having to literally read and find answers and be able to comprehend what they're finding and make sense of it. And now it seems like a treasure hunt. All you have to do is be able to hit a few keys, like you said, on the keyboard, and find the answer quickly and easily, which is now available to everyone. So it seems like what's happening is just another way of saying students are being taught to find things to fill in the blank without having to actually use their own critical thinking to figure things out and make sense of them on their own. So it's probably pretty easy to just copy and paste things, fill in the blank, because the goal is to just actually get the right answer, not understand the answer. That's what it sounds like. That's what I'm hearing from you. Is that about right?
That is 100% right. In their freshman year in school, they're taught all the important hold the control button down and then this letter and that letter and this letter. The find feature is what students use the most. So if I give them a 500 word article about whatever, they'll go to the question, and they've been taught through school that find a unique word in the question, go to the find feature in the document, type that word in, and it'll take you right to the exact sentence that word's in, and boom, you got the answer. Well, that's not what I want you to do. I want you to read it all. I want you to soak it all in. And then after reading all the arguments, and then you see that phrase and that argument possibly, then you have a complete picture of how you want to answer it. I don't care that you can hit Control C and then Control V. I want to see that you can write a capital A and put a period at the end of a sentence, which we don't have.
I think part of the problem as well is the fact that in terms of education, when you look at exams, it's more just a case of what you can remember. It's a remembrance test. It's not actually how much you know. And that's one of the things that's been brought up by Nobel Peace Prize winners and far more intelligent people than I am. And if they're saying it, it's them fostered. But what I find really interesting, certainly in the preparation for this with YouTube, is a prime example of that is now you can go on YouTube, download any video you want that has over 1 million views, put it up on your channel that fits your niche, and you too can get those high viewing things. We've lost the ability to, again, really create or recreate, as it were, and now where codependency and teenagers are being fostered into. The big question is, what does that then look like going forward? Are we just going to be people that essentially just replicate the same things going forward, and that means the same mistakes going forward? Or are there still going to be people out there that essentially can foster independent thought and are actually going to be developing this, as opposed to, well, this is just how I learned to copy? We've talked about it before with the school system, that you are taught essentially to show up on time, to be a worker, essentially, not to be necessarily an entrepreneur. Whereas now what I'm hearing is you're basically taught or being taught how to copy someone else. It's almost like the lemming syndrome.
Their justification is that we're preparing students for college, career, and life. And that might be true to some careers and some vocations and some majors in school, but we're not creating complete human beings. A lot of the workshops that we're getting pushed on now is how to use artificial intelligence in our teaching. And I've always had a very open relationship with my sons. And I ask them, hey, son, how are you getting this work done? I know you're a student. You're probably going to dip and dabble in some form of cheating, but what's the new rage right now? And he told me, he goes, Dad, we can tell when the teacher puts an article or something from the internet or from AI or from something that they've just downloaded from a teacher website.
Yeah. So
what we do is we just copy and paste the worksheet, put it into Google, and Google will tell us exactly where that worksheet is.
Yeah.
And the answer key is right there next to it. So teachers are getting exposed all the time because they're not putting the work in, and the students are finding the worksheets that they're just buying off a line, and the key is right there next to it. And a lot of those sheets are free, and one kid gets it and the photo exchange starts to happen, and you get grade inflation. You get kids thinking that they've scammed the system and that's the best way to solve their problems, which I don't think is the case.
But does that also show the education? In some ways, does it almost, point a spotlight on the education system, and that you can't do lazy teaching anymore? Because this is the thing, even for my BSc in psychology, they were doing this and adding to it as the course was going on, almost a handwritten document, because either the information wasn't there, they hadn't prepped enough, they hadn't done this, that, and the other. And you're thinking, this is happening in university, in some prestigious universities as well, not just in schools. So this is across the board. Has it gotten to a point now where teachers, again, are going to have to really force to really rethink the system? Because, again, it used to be you could look out lessons from 20 years ago and still use the same thing because that doesn't change. But now, obviously, like you said, it's all out there. It's all being exposed. And it is, as we've talked about many times before, it is all changing very, very quickly.
It seems like it's just the next level version of schooling.
Yeah.
So they're not really doing it doesn't seem like it's as drastically different as it's been for a long time. It's just easier now for kids because it's still a matter of training. It's still a matter of schooling the young person to just get the work done and move on. And without asking a lot of questions, without having to be curious, without having to figure things out. Before, it was not that much different. It was still a matter of just find answers and memorize. Now, maybe they had to use a little bit more skill to find their answers, but it's still, the goal was memorize, respond correctly on a test so you can move on to the next level. That's your job as a student. And it's still their job as a student. Now there's just technology helping them quickly find the answers so that they can respond correctly on a test and advance. And this is just a new level of skill using technology that will still make for a good workforce once they get out into the world. The few that will still find a way to have that critical thinking skill and entrepreneurial spirit and is still curious and wants to go out and really push themselves and create, those few will still rise to the top, and everyone else that hasn't been able to experience that or have the opportunity to develop those skills, they've been trained, they've been schooled to just be the next best employee, the next best worker. So it seems like it's different. I don't think so. I think it's the same. It's just the new level of sameness. That's what it seems like.
So from that point of view, is it almost a better thing then? From a work point or a workforce point of view, if you have a member of staff that's coming in and you need them to do a job, you need them to be a cog in a machine, and now they can do it, but they're trained with AI, which has less margin for error because of all the stuff that's going in there, all the fail-safes that's now being put in there, and the billions and billions of dollars that have been put into it. Is that going to make them for a better workforce? Potentially even a workforce that might not need human beings anymore.
Depends on who. Better for who. So better for
the employer,
boss,
those that are making the money. Yeah.
Better for the who's in charge, better for the powers that be, better for the employer. Sure, it's going to be better for certain people. But as far as better for the individual who may experience lack of fulfillment because they feel now that they are not prepared to do anything outside of that, I don't know. I don't know that it's better for the student that's come up all through their entire young adult life, and that has been their training since the minute they stepped into the school system, the public school system, until they depart. I don't know if they're really prepared to do anything but be somebody else's best worker. That might not lead to a very fulfilling life.
Very interesting point of view. Josh, any thoughts about that?
Well, you're asking what we can do as teachers, and instantly the analogy of a salmon kind of came up. And I enjoy wildlife, and I don't know many animals that continue to go against the grain and against the grain, go upstream like the salmon do. There's only they're one of a kind in that. Now, us older teachers, we can be that salmon, and it's really going to affect our mindset, our anger, our anxiety, having to go upstream against the system. So most teachers that have 20 years of experience choose to just go with the flow because it's going to be a lot easier for them. They're not going to have anybody knocking on their doors, asking them why you're teaching this, why they're teaching that. You're not going to have anything like that. It's just going to be super simple. You just do what's on the calendar the next day that the district provides, and you just keep it rolling that way. So that whole ease of use, the older teachers are just, some of them are just counting the days till their retirement. So if you give them something easy to do, they're not going to buck City Hall.
So it sounds like because the teachers have come up within the same system, the teachers have been schooled as well. So to your point, Josh, it is, most people will take the more comfortable, the more easy way, go with the flow, because bucking the system, especially this system that's been entrenched in our country for a long, long time, since the 1800s. So going against that is going to be, as I'm sure you know firsthand, incredibly challenging. And it's unlikely that the system itself is going to change. There's no incentive for the system to change. It's working fine for what it's designed to do. The best thing that can happen, that is already happening, is to offer alternatives to students and teachers that prefer not to be stuck in this system that's kind of a narrow one-way street. So it is a bit of a conundrum, and I feel bad for a lot of the teachers that see this playing out before their eyes. You know, teachers that have been in the system like yourself, Josh, for many years, and they feel a little bit helpless to really be able to have the kind of impact that they would like to have, and probably the impact that they had many years ago before things got to the point they're at now. It's got to be frustrating and disappointing. So I understand why a lot of teachers are leaving the system. They're either just going to retire or they're going to leave and lend their skills and their passion for teaching and helping kids to one of the many amazing alternatives that are now popping up all over the place.
Yeah, you'd think that teachers that are younger in the profession would be the ones that are going on leave for just being overwhelmed by teaching. It's the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout my journey through talking to teachers, the teachers that have over 20 years experience, I'd say at least 30 or 40% of them have had some type of, not mental breakdown, but might have had to have gone on leave for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, the end of the quarter, just to get their wits about them.
Yeah.
Because the way that they were trained and the way that they operated is like getting dropped off in the Amazon rainforest and trying to be able to survive and not have any knowledge of the ways of the rainforest. It's very difficult to teach an old dog a new trick. So as many administrators that are these older teachers are grumpy, they always fight for their rights. It's hard to just do a complete 180 and go from one way to something completely different.
Mm-hmm. I would think, especially when you have been there long enough, like you say, maybe 15, 20 years, 30 years. So you've seen how these changes affect the classroom and the students. So what would you say, Josh, is how are they showing up differently now with the ability to use AI and the internet and all this technology? The teachers use it, the students use it. They're just as savvy, tech savvy as the teachers. So how would you say the students are different today than when they had to work differently 25 years ago?
Kids just won't do it. If they don't want to do the assignment, they will just take the F. Like if I said, I'd like you to write on paper a 6-page essay on whatever, handwrite it, double spaced, print in your best handwriting, half the students just would say, I'll just take the F. So they've been preconditioned to, first of all, to use the technology, and then you're not ever going to be able to reach the students. If you don't, if you don't, it's almost like coming down to their ability, then you're almost doing them a disservice as a teacher. So if we don't change, we're hurting them even more because they just won't do it. Or they'll just get on their phone or some device or just put an earbud in and check out for the period. There are students that have 5% in classes out of 100, 7% great attendance, but they're just sitting there and they just refuse to do it.
Which in some ways does, sorry, I was just going to say, which some ways does beg the question that it's something that's been heavily talked about over here in the United Kingdom. I know for a fact in the United States, what is going to be the need for the schooling system 5-10 years from now? Because you can literally, if you've got a young child and you want to get them, meeting other kids and everything, homeschooling is one way to do it. Schooling institution-wise is another way to do it. But it does beg the question of the billions and billions that are being spent every year on the institutionalized school. And if it isn't serving that purpose anymore, and we know everything is circumstances to change, what is going to be the point of it, really? Because you can study what you want to study, develop what you want to learn, study that which you desire to become, and not need to go through 8 hours study a day. It is going to drastically change the landscape for sure. And again, it's just going to be another metamorphosis. It's just going to morph into something else.
Campuses will get smaller. I think they will get more efficient in their use of land. And I think virtual education will continue to rise, but there'll always be 50 to 60% of the population that count on the public schools because we do provide a lot of services besides education, meals, social programs. So I just think they'll be downsized, and the charter school movement has created an opportunity for the public schools to even create little charter programs within their public schools that they have an aviation program or more back to the trades. I think we'll see some more of that action in the public schools, and then the more advanced students will move off to a different track, which might be in the charter or the homeschool program.
And I do love that because over here in the UK, the after-school programs are getting less and less. You have different schools or different things that are going on, but they're not tied to the school anymore, and the funding is getting cut more and more. So that is encouraging from what you were saying there, Josh. Obviously, your time as basketball, I know that there's major emphasis played on sports in the United States. Not so much over here in the UK. It's, again, very different. And it's, I think, comforting for the US, but not so much for over here in the UK.
Well, I mean, here's an example of 2024 coaching. I had a parent come in, very nice. I had a wonderful talk with him, but the context of the conversation was, can you be nicer to my son?
Right.
I said, was it my tone? Is it? He goes, well, you're always making him do more than others. And I said, I'm trying to push your son to greatness. He said, well, you know, and so we had that whole conversation, but that kind of pushed, like, I've never had anybody ever talk to me about that in coaching. So
that's wild.
I mean, yeah, it was, it is what it is. Unfortunately, if you don't evolve, the very best will leave you, whether it's coaching or your school. They want the system that we've been discussing that's happening in the public schools. Yeah. There's only a very small segment that want not back to basics, but less dependence on technology and more dependence on their brain.
It's so interesting. And there is a place for technology, and everyone needs to learn it if they want to be able to participate in aspects of life where that's just where it's going. So that's just a fact that can't be ignored. So there is a place for that, but it can't overcome everything in any way that's healthy. So it's like you said the phrase earlier, Josh, something to the effect of the students, the way you're being taught now and what's available to them, the resources, it doesn't allow them to, I think you said something like develop into a whole person. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be a very interesting, probably bumpy and challenging evolution, because there will be, like you said, there are a lot of people that depend on the public school system for services for their kids. Sometimes it's actually the safest place for a kid to be, depending on their home life. Sometimes that's the best meal that they're going to get, depending on their home life. So I get why there's also a lot of dependency on it, but schools become just almost full-time babysitters for kids. That's not necessarily good. As people have become more and more exposed to what's happening and what's not happening in schools, they will absolutely seek out alternatives. If alternatives aren't there, they will create them. That's just the nature of the evolution of life. At some point, they'll have to change a little bit because they'll start losing revenue. And that's the only thing that will motivate a change in the public school system is loss of revenue. And every kid that doesn't go there means that much less money for that school. So we'll see how things play out, but you can't really, it's a situation where all you can do as a parent or a teacher, or maybe you're not a parent or a teacher, but you still really care about how young people are being educated and how they're being trained, because they are the future. So it should be something that everyone should have at least some awareness and concern over. But it's going to be just very interesting to see how it all plays out. And I think that, like everything else, certain things, when their time has has come to pass. It just does. And the chaos of the old institutions trying to hang on and figure out how to maintain their control, that's going to be an issue for them. I imagine they'll figure it out because there's a lot of power involved there. It's really managed by the unions, and that's a pretty powerful force, but they can't stop the alternatives. And so eventually the balance just simply automatically shifts because it can.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at it, I think, Loree, we've talked about it on another episode, actually, that I think it's 40% that the school system, the institutionalized school system, is losing per year, and 20% that the homeschooling system is increasing per year. Put that into monetary terms, we're talking billions and billions of dollars, and that's changing. But we've got to clarify as well, folks, that this isn't just the school system. This is across the board. That the church is essentially losing more and more members. More and more churches are amalgamating here in the United Kingdom because they're just not serving the needs of the people anymore. You can go online, you can watch church in India from the comfort of your own home in Baghdad or America or Canada or wherever you are. You can watch whatever service you want. In some ways, we've never had it so good in many ways, and yet we are more, I think, just withdrawn from society than ever before. So I think it is going to be really interesting. But I think ultimately, what I'm getting from all of this in this conversation today is it's being done with the outlook of making things a heck of a lot easier. Because if you can study what you want to study, you can work how you want to work, you can study when you want to study, you can work when you want to work, then why would you want to do, 45 hours a week and make things hard and difficult for yourself? But in every golden age of prosperity, there is historically a drop. And that's going to be really interesting to see what happens, how that transpires, everything else going forward. As we're coming up towards the end of the show, if either one of you has any final remarks, things that's burning that you just got to get off your chest before we wrap up a particular conversation.
I'll leave you with just a little guessing question again. I just came up with this one. Out of 10 students that come into high school, how many of them know how to sign their name? Or do they have to ask their teacher, how do you sign your name? 10 students. How many know how to sign their name?
What age group are we talking, Josh?
14 years old.
14
when they
years
come
old.
into high school.
Wow.
I'm going to say probably not more than 1 or 2.
Yeah, I would like to say 10 because at that age, everyone I knew how to sign their name because they knew what signing meant, handwriting. But I'm guessing it's going to be almost none.
Yeah, it was 3, and every kid prints. Every kid I have prints their signature. And I have to show them, do it like a rock star or a soccer player and show them on the board. And then they might come up with it. Otherwise, they're satisfied with just the block letters.
Yeah. Because for a lot of them, it's like, why would they need to sign their name, first of all? And second of all, everything is typed out now. Over here, handwriting is almost a skill that's non-existent anymore. So that's another beautiful thing that's gone.
Yeah,
it is. It's a lost art. And that is a sad thing because I personally, this is just my own belief, but I believe that the ability to handwrite, put pen to paper, and have a flow of thought from here out your hand through the pen to paper is a very powerful exercise and meaningful. It's a different kind of energy than typing on a computer. It's a shame that is becoming a lost art, because it's almost like a spiritual connection that happens when you are able to put pen to paper. And I think that it's a shame that will be something that a lot of young people will not be experiencing because they haven't been taught how to write. It just seems like pretty fundamental. But here's the thing, my final thought is slowly, with everything that's available, people are rethinking their old beliefs that the only way that kids can learn how to do fundamental things like write and read and do math is to send them to an institution to sit in there all day long and have somebody else tell them. Whereas now they're going, oh, maybe that's not true.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing, first of all, it's not happening. Their kids are illiterate. And so they're spending all this time and all these years in there, and they're coming out not being able to read well or write or comprehend what they're reading. So it isn't working, number one. But number two, the concerned parent, if they can't find an alternative that works within their own resources, then they'll teach them themselves. We're all perfectly capable of teaching a young person how to do basic math, how to write. It's just, practice, and how to read. Anyone can do that. That's how they learned before the institution of public schooling came along. That's where all the founding fathers of our country, that none of them went to public school. They learned at home. So I think everybody's belief system is slowly changing, and they're questioning what they have been told is the only way. And this is what must happen, or you or your child are never going to be able to create any kind of a worthy, valuable, meaningful life if you don't do it this way. That's all bullshit. So people know it now, I thought.
Absolutely. And personally, my thought is don't rely too much on AI technology, because we're only 1 year out from a Terminator-esque kind of society, believe it or not. So that's my final thought as we're going through all of this. And on that pleasant note, folks, we want to thank you so much for watching. We look forward to your questions obviously when you watch this in the replay. For Josh, Loree, and myself, we invite you to stick around for next episode, whenever that will be, on YouTube, Facebook Live, or wherever you catch all your great shows and all that kind of good stuff. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.